There was a guy who had a broken situation going on in his marriage. And he figured, you know what, things just aren't going right. And he kind of thought his wife was having an affair. So he decided he was going to leave work early and go back to his apartment. He was on the 21st floor of a nice high-rise, and catch her. So he left work early. Jumping ahead now. 3 individuals are knocking on the gates of heaven. Now remember what I've just told you. They go up to the gates of heaven and they're trying to get in. And St. Peter says, I'm sorry, we're full right now. We're not letting anybody in unless you died in a very strange way. And the 3 of them all looked at each other and went, oh. And St. Peter went up to the first one and said, why don't you start the story? And that's where he began to say, my wife was having an affair and I ran home and I wanted to catch her in the act. So I went up to my 21st floor apartment and I could hear her inside. And I burst through the door and there she was in the bedroom, alone. And I'm looking around the apartment, the closet, everywhere I could think of. There was nobody in there. I was so frustrated. I actually felt stupid. So I went outside on the patio just to get some air and reflect. And then I look down and I see a man dangling from my ledge, screaming and yelling in his underwear, saying, help me, help me. He's holding on with his fingers. I caught him. So I started pounding on his fingers. I wanted him to let go. I wanted him to fall. But he wouldn't let go. I ran inside and I got a hammer. And I started smashing his fingers. He let go. And he fell 21 stories down. But he landed in a bush. He's looking up at me and I'm looking down at him. And so I did the next thing I could think of. I ran into the kitchen and wheeled out my refrigerator onto the deck. I heaved it over and it landed on him and killed him. But St. Peter, in doing that, I had a heart attack. And I died, and I mean, would you let me in? And St. Peter said, God, I've never heard this one before. Come on in. It goes up to the next guy, who's standing there in his underwear. And he said, what happened to you? And he said, well, I was on my 22nd story balcony doing my exercises. And a long, big burst of a wind came and knocked me over. But thank God I caught the ledge of the 21st floor. But I couldn't get up. And I'm praying to God, St. Peter. I'm saying, please, somebody help me. Please. And just then, somebody comes through a door. And I'm saying to myself, I'm saved. And I'm dangling St. Peter with my fingers. And I figure he's going to reach down and pull me up. Instead, he starts hitting my fingers. And I'm screaming. And he won't stop. Then he leaves and he gets a hammer. And he's smacking me. I had to let go. But St. Peter, I landed in a bush. I was alive. But then I looked up, and a refrigerator, it landed on me and killed me. And that's how I died. And St. Peter said, my God, come on in. And he goes up to the third guy and said, what happened to you? And he said, picture this. I'm hiding in a refrigerator. What is the moral of that story? Things happen when you least expect them. And boy, do they happen on coast to coast. When we get those phone calls, you have no idea what's going to come. You know, people tell me, what are some of your most memorable calls? Honestly, they all are. Whether they come from people who are darn serious about what's going on in their life, whether it's the economy or a search for Bigfoot or this incredible UFO conference, all those are important. I remember though getting a call from a woman who just said, you know what, my husband came home late, 3 o'clock in the morning. He never comes home late, George, never. And I said, uh-huh. And she said, and he was all nervous and sweaty. And I said, uh-huh. What else can you say? She said, George, he said he was abducted by aliens. They got him. And I said, well, what else did he say? She said, they stole his wedding ring. You listen to those. Where do you go from there? Where do you go? But there was a class that I got many, many years ago from a fellow who was very despondent about life. And I guess it's the nature of the program because it covers everything. And he said, George, you know what? I was near suicide. I just wanted to give up on everything I did. And I didn't know what to do. So I got in my car and I just drove. And I drove and I drove about 100 miles. And on the side of the road, I see this little tiny lake with ducks flying in and flying out. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to sit there and reflect. Maybe even do the deed there. So he's sitting on a park bench, and a little old farmer comes by in coveralls and sits down next to him. And they chat. They chat for about an hour about everything, about life, his life, why it was so important. And the guy said, you know what, George, after we were done, I thanked him. He saved my life. I came back home a year later. I had a new job. I had a new girlfriend. Life was very good for me. And he said, I wanted to thank this guy. I didn't get his last name, but I know where he lived. So I went back. And I'm in this little town of 2,500 people, and I figure, look, there's one barber shop here. So the barber will know this guy once I describe him. So I walked in, and the barber's there cutting somebody's hair. And I said, excuse me, sir, but I'm trying to find this guy. And he started to explain what he looked like. And the barber knew him. And he said, hold on. Just, why don't you go up to the top of the hill? There's a big white house there. Knock on the door, talk to his daughter. And he said, okay, I will. But you know what, George? The way the barber was telling me this story, I kind of thought something was wrong. Something had happened. But I did. I knocked on the door. A young lady came, and I said, excuse me, I don't want to interrupt you, but I'm just here to thank your father because he saved my life. Last year, he sat down. She said, hold on. You're the 5th person to come and tell me this. But I just wanted you to know my father died 15 years ago. And when I heard that, it just sent chills up my spine. And it made me realize that there is so much to this world. So much, too, as well. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. at the X conference, sitting right next to astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who told me he's seriously thinking about going back into space, which I think would be incredible and would make him the oldest person in space ever, passing John Glenn. And he just began to tell us about his belief in extraterrestrial life and the fact that he has been told by people higher up that there is life, that we are being visited. And I've got to tell you, when you hear stories from people like that, even though all of us could be considered credible, when you hear stories from an astronaut that we've been visited, we have been visited, where they know this, you got to believe him. It's got no reason to make this up. And that just continues to add to my belief that there's so much out there in this universe that we just don't understand. I don't know where they're coming from. I think other planets in our universe. I think they've learned how to bend space and time and travel. But as more and more physicists like Michio Kaku talk about multi-universes, they may be coming from those as well. They simply seem to disappear at will. And so there may be something to that too. I'd like to open this up in a second to just some Q&A about what we do, things that you normally don't hear on the show. But I want to introduce a couple people in the audience that you may have heard of earlier today. Roger Lear, of course, is a dear friend. Roger, stand up, stand up. I wonder if they've heard the Roger Lear story. Have you heard probably, I think, one of the nicest stories of mankind I think I've ever heard? Have you ever heard the story about Roger Lear and his benevolence? Oh, you mind if I tell it? I know it sometimes embarrasses you.
I'm so anxious to hear the fourth version.
Okay. I mean, you are one heck of a guy to allow me to tell this story of your benevolence. Roger was being driven around by his, well, first of all, please understand, he removes implants from people. He doesn't make a lot of money doing this. He's a doctor, but you know, they're not running down, knocking down his door, paying him thousands of dollars for these operations. He donates his time. Nonetheless, Roger was in his limousine one day, driving down the side of the road. And to tell you the kind of guy he is, he saw a family on the side of a road. And these are tough economic times. And two little kids and a mother and father. And they were on their knees eating grass. Roger stops the limousine, rolls down his window, flicks his cigar a couple times, and yells out, "What are you people doing?" And the father said, "Sir, we're hungry, and this is all we can eat, this grass." Roger told his limousine driver, "Get them, get all of them, and put them in this car right now." And as the limousine driver is doing that, putting the father in the front, and the mother and the two kids in the back, and there's Roger, they drive off. And they said, "Sir, where are we going?" And Roger says, "Tonight, you will dine at my place." And they started crying. And then Roger said, "Because my grass is this high." I say this story only to get back at Roger for something he did to me at an event once. He booked a room for me because I was spending the night at this conference, only to come into this room and see two pillows on this king-size bed with names on the pillows. One had my name, the other had his. And I have pledged for the rest of my life to get him at every conference that he's at. That's Roger Lear. Another fella here who's been just a wonderful guest on Coast to Coast. Absolutely superb. Who somehow seems to get clipped on his telephone every time he's saying something that is not popular or very strange when it comes to government. Jordan Maxwell. Jordan. Jordan has guts. He tells it the way he sees it. I think you went through a spell of looking over your shoulder maybe too much, rightfully so. But, you know, something I think has happened to Jordan because he's not going to stop anymore. I think there was a point you were stopping, but you've come back, and we're glad you have. Lex, I want you to come up for just 1 second or so. Lex is our web minister.
Yeah!
Lex joined us when I took over full-time in 2003 and started modifying our website, and is now constructing the new one that is up, still going through its metamorphosis. And if you have any questions with the web, address them, and Lex will answer those for you too. Why don't you give us a few words about what you're doing with this thing?
Hey everybody. I was hoping that the website would still be up here so I could kind of do like the weather report. You know, it's cloudy over George Norrie's face right now. It is a little bit of a work in progress, so we definitely are open to user feedback, and we have a bunch of new features that are still coming, so things aren't set in stone. But we're pretty happy with how it's going so far. We kind of gave it more of a streamlined, modern feel. There's 3 columns on the, oh, there we go. So we've got 3 columns instead of 4 on the home page, so it's a little less cluttered. And just have some user interactivity things that are, some of them are coming on the way where you can rate photos and shows. And things like, there's like a tab up there where you can click most popular so you can see what other people are clicking on, stuff like that. So it's just kind of a brief overview.
Sure. You know, people ask us why we keep doing what we're doing. Why do we keep forging ahead? Why do we break stories that the mainstream media doesn't pick up on for weeks, months, years later? Case in point, the swine flu. The first day this was reported, I went out on the air and said, folks, it's not that bad. Trust me here. For whatever reason, it's not that bad. And what are they saying today? Well, this is a strain that appears to be dying off. Or we're not sure how it happened, but it's almost gone. But we're still keeping our eyes on it now. What bothers me more than anything is how the mainstream media jumps on this hand-picked government verbiage and doesn't tell you what's going on. They don't tell you the truth. They don't investigate it to the point where I am now convinced that it's the mainstream media that has helped contribute to this economic mess we're in by panicking people not to buy cars and not to do this and not to do that. And sure, it's bad for some people, but it got worse for most people because everybody panicked and stopped doing what they normally do. This economy in this country runs on people buying things. If you do not, it collapses. And the media in this country contributed to that demise. There is no doubt in my mind. And I think they are responsible for the panic that continues to run. What we're going to do on Coast to Coast is always be one step ahead of all of them. And if there are plans to put people in quarantine or put people in camps, we're going to be there and we're going to say it. And you can take it to the bank by the time we get to that point. In terms of the mainstream media, I'm very disappointed in what they do. And there is our ancient astronaut people as well. A great show. Great show. I still get more response to that, George, than anybody. Wonderful. Did you speak yet today?
Yes.
You did. Okay. So let's open this up to some Q&A. You all met Tom. our line show producer. There he is. We have a great staff at Coast to Coast with some remarkable people, George Knapp and Ian Punnett, who back us all up. Tom is what I call the line producer, and that is, he's there on the air when I'm there, handling people who call, and also is responsible for producing that first hour, and then works with our main show producer, Lisa, in filling guests that appear on the program on a regular basis. Works around the clock, constant energy. He is single, and if anybody wants to give him an application, there he is. How about some questions? Things that you normally don't hear on Coast to Coast. Who wants to start? Go ahead. This would make you east of the Rockies, I think.
When you look at all that's going on, do you ever think about like the camps and stuff? Do you ever think about leaving the country?
No, never. I can't, because if I do, number one, what kind of panic would that spread? You know, if I say, that's it, I'm out of here, what are you guys gonna do? So, on that reason alone, I won't do that, because I truly feel as if I have an obligation, kind of like the Titanic. I'll make sure you all get in the boat first. Now, Tommy, on the other hand, may put on a woman's wig and a dress and jump on the boat first, but not me. Not me. But that's one of the main reasons. I do not plan to ever leave this country. I love the United States. I served in the military for 9 years, never saw combat. Though my unit was called up to the first Desert Storm, and I had retired 1 month before that, and they all came back with ribbons and everything else. Right on cue, thank you, God. Does follow up to that?
Follow up, have you ever had like a psychologist or someone on to help people with, because sometimes it gets really depressing, all the stuff that's going on.
Yes.
So do you ever have, because I listen to you mostly, but I may have missed it, do you ever have shows with people that help you, like, psychologically? What do you do about this? How do you...
We've had some self-help shows. We've also had our share of doom and gloomers who say it the way they see it. I mean, you listen to Steve Quayle, by the time you're done with 3 hours, you're ready to jump off a bridge.